I counsel this woman. She's fantastic. But 4 years later, I just counseled her on Monday night. And she said, Kelly, I cannot believe that every single time I talk to you, I get something new. It keeps me on track, push me out of that. Like got into that weird cycle again. She's 6 years old. She's been doing the same things forever. But by keeping that once a month cadence with me, it keeps her on track. And I snap her back out of like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What have we learned? What do we need to get back on to get this back on track?
Kelly Springer, welcome to the American Glutton podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm excited to talk to you about your book, Navigating Dieting in an Age of Medicines. Is that it? I'm messing up the title with a dietitian's expertise.
It's called The New Weight Loss Era.
Okay.
Because weight loss is not new. We've been talking about weight loss for decades, as we all know, and really understanding where we've been and where we're going. And as a registered dietitian, that we can really, truly help people in that process, wherever they are on their journey. And we're here to help.
Yeah. Okay. So it seems like we're a little bit of my backstory. I remember I've been on diets since I was 5. I was put on something called Ma Wang. I don't know if you remember that. You might not even be old enough to remember that. This was like the 80s, and my parents were at their wits' end. None of the diets were working, so I was put on this supplement called Ma Wang. Didn't sleep, taken off the supplement. Then there was the Fen came around. I was put on that. Again, didn't sleep, taken off of it, thankfully, pretty quickly. Those have been my experience with diet drugs. Then I got sober and as an adult started dieting on my own and was told like, well, you can still get diet drugs, but they would have probably impacted my sobriety because they were basically just stimulants. Mm-hmm. And now, and like, I figured out something useful where I could lose weight and not just gain it all back about 6 years ago. But I remember as a kid dreaming that somebody would have some breakthrough that would kind of solve the riddle that was me medically, that I thought, I imagined it would be a pill that I could take and I would just become a normal person, quote unquote, right? I find this word normal now to be like, nobody wants to be labeled as normal and nobody is, identifies as, everybody's got their stuff. Mm-hmm. So I just mean that in a way of like, as part of the sober community, we call people normies who can like pour a glass of wine and don't have to finish it. And so I think of somebody who can go and get, a value meal at McDonald's and be perfectly satisfied just eating that as a quote unquote normal person. I don't mean that their whole life reduces down to the average. And now it seems like we have the magic diet drugs. They now exist from my perception. Who knows what happens, but these peptides have been around treating people with type 2 diabetes for a while. It does seem magical. Now, I'm not a dietitian, but let me throw at you my concerns. My concerns are I was 550 pounds. So you have to go really far back, 20 plus years to get me at that weight. But at that weight, I'm probably a perfect candidate to hop on one of these medications for the rest of my life. I have a daughter with type 1 diabetes. There's no question in my mind that she will be taking insulin, which is also a peptide, I believe, for the rest of her life. Fine. No issue with that. That is to solve her life, that handle some structural anomaly in her life. But I have a lot of friends and I have a wife and I have 4 daughters, and a lot of the dieting I see is not people who are 550 pounds. It is, and this is just my experience because I have a lot of women in my life. It is women who want to lose 10, 15, 20 pounds. And the diets that I see that are picked quite often are just prolonging the yo-yo cycle. And now if we introduce these magic diet drugs in, all that really does to my eye in the situation where I see the majority of dieting is making those yo-yo diets kind of easier. And that's my concern. So I like super beneficial for people who are morbidly obese and are going to have to be on them for the rest of their life. Concerning in other areas where it's like an awful lot of people, the diet industry is so massive in America. Are we going to see some iteration where, you know, almost where people cycle on and off of these things, body weight averages out to be static, but actual body fat percentage rises because as we lose weight rapidly, we're also losing lean tissue. I just spewed so much at you. Sorry, Kelly. That's
no,
a lot.
I'm glad that you did, because I think that this shows your passion to what you're speaking on. And I was just telling a mentor of mine, I have been hearing stories like yours for 25 years. And I started in bariatrics and counseling way back when I was about 21 years old, and came back as a coordinator, have really, truly dedicated my life to weight loss and weight management. And it's something that I'm extremely passionate about as well. And what you're talking about and the struggles you went through, you are not alone. There's so many people that are in that same boat, right? And so you are right. The yo-yo dieting is a massive problem. And when I started in bariatrics, it was really interesting to me. One of the first questions we had to ask for the assessment is, how many diets have you been on? And just like yourself, of like all the different things they've tried, the medications they tried, and they were yo-yoing. And with that yo-yo dieting came that reduction in metabolism and all of the struggles and issues that they would have later on. So I would see the person, like you said, 500 pounds, that would cry and say, Kelly, I'm not eating.
Right.
I don't know what, and so the medical doctor's like, well, they obviously are supporting their weight somehow, like something's going. But what I would find out after story after story after story, that it was consistent. And I do see exactly what you're saying, that with this yo-yo dieting, we are going to see major problems in metabolism. And so my goal as a registered dietitian is not to fix the problem, but to be a part of the change in healthcare. And what I truly believe is that there is a massive lack of education on how to actually eat healthfully and sustainably and all of that. And so just recently we partnered with a diabetic app company. It's really pretty cool. It's brand new, called GlucoSense, and I'll get your daughter on there. She'll love it. It's free to diabetics. So what we were talking about, and the owner of the company has become a friend of mine, Jonathan, and he has type 1 diabetes. And he's like, well, Kelly, my blood sugars, like, they depend on this, that, blah, blah, blah. And I said, Jonathan, you still have never been educated. Why are you so against the education? Because I'm telling you, if you truly are educated on what a carb is and how to put that with proteins and how to put it with fat, I can teach you how to stabilize those blood sugar levels. I can teach you on how to manage your weight. I can teach you how to do that. But we're so quick for the app or the pill or whatever it is that we're lacking still the education.
Yeah. And with dieting, we're so quick for give me the simplest structure that, again, teaches me nothing. Okay, I'm going to be a vegan. I just don't eat meat. That's it. That's all I have to do, right? I can eat at Veggie Grill, which is like vegan fast food, and I can eat, cashew ice cream and cashew cheese and make vegan grilled cheeses all day long. And but I'm not eating meat. Or there's the other side that surprises me every day, which is like, no, vegetables are poisonous. Just eat meat. And it's like, or like carbohydrates are evil. Gluten is evil. It's like, give me the simplest, easiest fix. Where like what you're talking about is, it took me so long to move away from like, I was actually using food to kind of quell the discomfort within me, and any kind of real knowledge or understanding was repulsive because it kind of enforced me to be responsible. And I didn't want responsibility. I wanted as little responsibility as possible. I mean, it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell. Like, let's educate everyone, you know?
Well, and that's why we wrote the book. So this book has taken 9 years. Okay. So it's not like I'm not a writer. Did not set out to write a book. But after seeing thousands of clients go through this program, we call it's a stupid generic name called the transformation program, because it really does transform people with the education. And that's all it is. We do not sell vitamins. We do not sell food. We don't sell anything. It's truly an education module that sets you up for success. And I've been able to see, like I said, thousands of people go through this, both in one-on-one counseling and in group setting with different dietitians that we now teach about this program. It works because you're truly getting the education and knowledge to work with any situation. Yes, we just had the holidays. What do you do? How do you incorporate in your life? How do you not use food, as you're saying, for coping mechanisms? And believe me, back in the day, I had complete disordered eating on the opposite side, right? So like, I understand the difficulty around food. I understand how, if you're not using it appropriately, of how it can backfire on you. I understand completely. But once even I started following my own advice, the food noise went away. My health became better. My weight stabilizes. It's been a world of difference in my own life. And so I think I'm so excited that we finally put it into written form. And believe me, it's our first book. I'm not going to say that it's the most perfect thing in the world, but it's truly going to help people. And now that insurance covers nutrition counseling, they can use this book along with their own personalized registered dietitian to get their exact, what their heritage is, what shift they work. Like if they're a truck driver, how are we going to go around that? So you really, with the book, can personalize it with your own registered dietitian as well.
Wow. I didn't know that insurance was covering dietitians and nutrition. That's amazing.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
So the call right before this is like all the different codes we have, the different insurances. So we're really working with clients across the US to be able to work with their insurance plans and know like what codes, and dietitians are coming together to work together for the first time to create the list of like what are the different codes at work. And so we can truly help people to get this covered.
Right. And what are you seeing? How is the landscape shifting today? I mean, because we also have social media, like that's another one of the things that's different, I guess, from when I was a kid. And it just seems to be filled with people who take almost like religious positions on food, and it can be very confusing,
Mm-hmm. I know. And so that's where our company really stands behind no judgment. So if you're coming in with keto, or you're coming in as vegan, if you're coming in with whatever you've read on the internet, we get into, okay, that is awesome. But if you're coming in as keto, how are you going to get enough fiber to support your gut health? Okay, if you're coming in as vegan, how are you going to get enough protein? So let's work with this. Let's actually take wherever you're at, and let's break it down for you to see, like, are you getting the vitamins, minerals, proteins that you need? So for instance, someone would come in and they say, I'm all about intermittent fasting. This is what works for me. I've done all this research. Okay, great. That's awesome. Let's see, can you actually get the protein, nutrients, and vitamins you need during that amount of time? Or do we need to maybe bring it back an hour to make sure you're getting, see what I mean? Like, so we're able to really take the person to say, okay, this is what you want to follow, or this is what you've been told. So let's see how we actually get the nutrition in there to make sure this makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense.
So it's like not saying like, okay, you're stupid. There's no science to back it. You're really trying to not take that approach and say, all right, I understand what you've read. I understand that this works for you. So let's just make sure we're getting what we need to get it.
And there's no kind of, you're not compelled at all to go like, if this was working for you, you wouldn't be here seeing me.
Well,
Like there's no like, let's reimagine everything. Let's start, you know what I mean?
well, and that's why we really do need lab work, just so you know. Like, it's very important. Registered dietitians at this moment cannot write for blood work, which makes absolutely no sense. So, hopefully, in the near future, things will be changing for us because of our licensure and different things that we can actually get what we need to do our job. But it is important for us to see, like, what are your B12 levels, your iron levels, and like what is actually going on. So then if someone comes in, and I'm not picking on veganism right now, just so you know, I'm just using it as an example. But if someone comes in and they're like, I am a strict vegan, because the conversation came up yesterday, so it's top of mind. And we see that they really have low iron levels and B12 levels and their ferritin stores. And there's just a lot of different things, and say, like, okay, we can either supplement with supplements with vitamins and minerals and see how that works. Or would you be open to maybe adding in these certain foods that can bump this up? Or like where's your comfort level? So see what I mean? So like, but without the lab work, we don't have any ammo to say like you need to change anything at all.
Right.
So it's really looking and working with the medical professional. And our site does have a built-in EMR. So we're able to connect with that physician to say, hey, we really do need this lab work to be able to work with this client to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And usually the medical provider is, able to work with us in that way.
And are you finding that people are coming to you with a host of different problems? Is it primarily weight related? Is it autoimmune? Is it what are people?
It is the full gamut, but we are, yes, definitely GI is a big issue. And it could be for the lack of the different things in the diet that they're not getting. So we are seeing, a lot of IBS, Crohn's, colitis, a lot of inflammation markers, like you just said, with food allergies or intolerances. But then also, yes, your generic weight loss, high blood pressure, diabetes, all of that. Now we're getting people that want to get on GLP-1 medications, and they need to do a program prior to getting on. So
what do they do? What's that? What you have to do? Because I know with like bariatric surgery, people have to diet prior, I think for two reasons. One of it's like the surgery requires you maybe to be smaller, but also the doctors want to see, like, if we're going to do this procedure on you, it doesn't do everything. There's still some personal responsibility. So we want to see that you can do it. Is that the same with GLP-1s?
Exactly. So way back when I started in bariatrics, at 21 years old, it was the Wild West. Like, we had this doctor, and he was just literally, I would see the person the day before they had surgery and go through a 3-page list of all the things they needed to change in the matter of 6 hours, basically. Wow. So when I came back as the coordinator, like 28, 29, we had centers of care. And so with that, they were seeing the dietitian multiple times prior to the surgery. They did have to have that 10% weight loss. They met with a therapist. They met with a PT. It was really, truly a center of care to make sure the success of that person. And also, like you said, so to shrink the liver down. So it made it safer for surgery as well. And so, yes, all of those things. And you're going to see that, I believe, with these GLP-1 medications as well. So before they're just like, oh, here, everybody take them, whatever. Now you're going to see certain insurances are saying you have to do the same as the weight loss. You have to show that you are part of a 12-week or 3-month program, which our Kelly's Choice company has available. And you have to show that you lost as much weight or whatever it is. So I do think that there's going to be more center of care around these medications, because, like you also brought up, these are for life medications. And so if your organization decides, like the company you work for decides that they're no longer going to pay for these medications, how are you going to be sustainable without them?
Right.
So that's where these parameters are going to be put in place to be able to work with a registered dietitian to make sure that you are successful.
And what is the advice? I just think, like, we experienced in 2023, I believe, the first tick down in obesity rates in America that we've had in decades, which is great. I assume that's because of GLP-1s. I don't know. I have no real data on this, but like suddenly we have these omnipresent weight loss drugs and obesity ticks down by like 0.5%. It's not a huge thing. But it had been climbing pretty regularly. What are some of the things? So I just mean, since that's everywhere and being talked about so much, what are some of the things that you as a dietitian suggest people do? Or is it just you got to lose weight before you even get on it?
Okay, so I truly believe I also have my master's in health ed. So like truly understand all aspects from the exercise to mental health to all of it. Somehow in all of those health pieces of the puzzle or pieces of the pie, whatever I want to say, nutrition has been missed across the board. So I don't know if you remember, but I remember back in my eighth grade health class, nutrition was not even mentioned.
Yeah.
Not mentioned.
No, I don't feel like I got nutrition in
No.
school at all. I had my mom's weird ideas about nutrition. She was like a hippie. And then I clung to some of those. And then I went through my own versions of like
This is
carbohydrates are bad, gluten is bad. And now I'm kind of at a place where I just need to be moderate and prioritize protein and get fiber. Like those are my tenets.
that's it. But so think about it, like health class did
Right.
not talk about nutrition.
Yeah.
Physicians not they only are educated in one semester of nutrition in their entirety of their education. My husband is a doctor, so I can talk about it. He's highly educated and got one semester of general nutrition. So this is where nutrition in general has been a missed topic, and I don't understand why. Again, I've been in this industry a really long time. I've owned Kelly's Choice for 12 years. This is the first year that I can say physicians are now recognizing, hospital systems are coming to us, insurance is reimbursing. This is the first time. And look, you saw a decrease, maybe in the medications, but maybe because nutrition is now being recognized as a part of that health pie or curriculum, right?
Yeah.
So as of Monday, I'm going in to teach back in my original middle school. I'm going in to teach nutrition. I
Wow.
haven't been asked to do that in 21 years of having my education. I'm going back in to teach. So I'm seeing this switch. I'm seeing this change. But you are right. It is simple tips of protein and fiber. But when we throw that out there, again, how do you put that into your life? What does that mean for you? And I think that's where, just like you might have a therapist, everyone could benefit by having a registered dietitian in their life. If you had that person that you could go to and have that app that you can connect with and be able to understand what's going on with your body and the struggles you might have, or, say something triggers you, it could be a birthday party, or you're going to meet up with your college friends and you're like feeling, so like, what are those different things? I counsel this woman. She's fantastic. She works for New York State. She's been with me for 4 years. Fortunately, her insurance fully covers our service. But 4 years later, I just counseled her on Monday night. And she said, Kelly, I cannot believe that every single time I talk to you, I get something new. It keeps me on track. You push me out of that. Like got into that weird cycle again, because she's 60 years old. She's been doing the same things forever. But by keeping that once a month cadence with me, it keeps her on track. And I snap her back out of like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What have we learned? What do we need to get back on to get this back on track? But do you see what I mean?
I know I see what you mean, but also it like I had this like flashes to some kind of future potential utopia where like there are counselors in school. If you're having a rough day, there's somebody you can go and talk to. And I wonder if, I mean, we can pull up studies that talk about like what we put into our bodies making us feel certain ways. And so what if that was another thing where there was like a dietitian at school that you could go and talk to and it was taught? Like that would be amazing.
How is it not? Right? When we talk about ADHD and problems. So way back in the day, after I was in between those bariatric zones, I have two daughters that are now 17 and 19. So when they were first born, I worked at Hillside Children's Center. And it was my first job back as having like my little babies. And when I got there, everything was heat and serve, and there was no fiber, very low protein. And they basically were like, we're just feeding them crap. We don't care. So I worked with Cornell Cooperative Extension to come up with children's recipes, have them vote on these recipes. We were able to change over all the food within a 3-month period to all being served there.
Wow.
Increase the fiber, increase the protein, and had them vote so they were like a part of the process. Guess what? We had a reduction in holds, which means taking kids down to the floor because of their inability to control their own behaviors, to 0.
Wow.
We had their testimonies on how their self-efficacy increased. We had reduction in weight. And the biggest thing is, guess what? We got them off half their psych meds in just 6 months. And they were blown away at what we were able to do. And we just replicated it again at Madison County Jail by doing the same exact thing with inmates.
Where you give them some choice, some input, and they're choosing like, yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, like the food, I left school at 14 in 1990. And so like, I don't have much memory. I think my mom was truly a hippie and always made me take food to school. It didn't matter. I would trade with people there and eat whatever garbage I could get my hands on. But I know that one of my kids, and this was years ago, still the food offered was just Taco Bell at her school. They just had Taco Bell. And I was like, that's crazy. We don't really eat that in real life. I certainly don't want that to be what you're eating in the middle of the day. Taco Bell for me is like maybe once a decade if I wind up somewhere and haven't eaten all day and that's the only thing open, then I'm choosing Taco Bell. It doesn't seem nutritious to me at all.
No, and it's directly tied, as you were saying, you alluded to, but it's directly tied to mental health. And we now know that, and we have so much research now to back up the correlation between food and mental health. And that is anxiety, depression, and like I said, ADHD. And in most cases, with food intervention, we can actually decrease or eliminate those mental health issues.
Wow.
So we've proved it with children, we've proved it with adults, we've proved it across the board. And I think that if we had more of these interventions in our schools and really educating the students, implementing nutrition education right in the schools is something that I'm passionate about. We started a nonprofit called Nutrition Education for All, and that's the goal. But this is where it's so powerful, and I think it's been overlooked. I know it's been overlooked, and it's now time. It's time.
It's time. Yeah. I mean, I remember reading a study, and I do, it can be tough, like correlation, causation and all that. But like as therapy has increased in America, mental illness just seems to be like pacing right behind it. So it's just like almost like this incentive structure. And I wonder if we would have been better off just throwing dietitians into schools, you know what I mean? Or throwing like a little bit of fiber and some more lean protein at the kids.
And I think it all comes together, right? Because there's some things that you need to go through. Like when I would counsel in bariatrics and the physician would say, why are you taking so long with that person? And I said, they just told me they were raped at 6 years old. Ooh. And so, but they came out to me, right? Because it was just, I had been with them because of the center of care, but then that does need to go on to a therapy session, right? So this is where, again, I do think that we do have different specialties, but the reason why they chose to overeat and what happened to them was to protect themselves, and they used food for that protection. So do you see, like, I think that therapy still is necessary, but nutrition needs to be incorporated with it.
Sure. Yes. I'm not saying like we need to get rid of this. That wasn't what I was just saying. Like, it feels that there is a large missed aspect. Yes. And then I get into like, I remember being a kid and having doctors talk to me and tell me how much weight I needed to lose. And it made me terrifically uncomfortable. And then, you know, God forbid I tell one, I have four daughters. One of them's 19 and she's right now obsessed with raw milk. And I'm like, listen, I don't know. I don't think pasteurized milk is all that bad. Like we never even really drank milk. What's this new obsession with raw milk? You know, some TikToker has a big butt
Right.
and says raw milk is the best. And so my 19-year-old daughter is like, I just need to eat raw dairy. And I'm like, there's also, E. coli and salmonella and stuff. And the incidence might not be that high, but that's because not a lot of people drink raw milk. And so like, I'm not mad at pasteurization. Like that's not going to be a hill I die on either way. But talking to her about it, and she has no real data other than memes and social media,
Mhm.
it becomes you start to get a perception that like you're talking about something that she holds from an almost religious position. And so I start to wonder like, education and food, there are just people out there with so many divergent points of view, and all of them they believe are absolutely correct.
Correct. And that's where a lot of times I'll say, unless you're paying me, you can have whatever view you want.
Right. Right.
um, because you're not going to win them all. And, so dietitians, just so you know, where we always come. So I was at my entrepreneur group in Atlanta, and a guy came up to me and he's like, "What do you think about the blood type diet?" And I said, "Listen," I said, "so as a registered dietitian, we are based in science." And I said, the blood type diet may be a thing, but right now in science, we don't have enough research to have an opinion either way.
Right.
And so I said, I am not, and I think if dietitians would take more of that approach, I think that we would have a better understanding than saying, well, that's terrible. But I think that if we could just take that approach, we don't have enough research yet on that topic. It could be beneficial, but until we have the research, we're not allowed under our ethics, we're not allowed to talk about that. So,
Yeah.
so that's how.
I've done the blood type diet. That was one of the diets I did. And like, I just think like with any of these things, I think what you're trying to address also really matters. For
Right.
me, all I wanted was weight loss. And I was given a list of foods for my blood type. And I lost a little bit of weight and then I stopped losing weight. And I was nowhere near where I wanted to be. And so I again, this was like, I don't know, my 100th diet. I thought there's something wrong with me. Like I'm broken. This diet isn't working. Obviously, the diet has no problems. But like, what are you trying to solve? If you're
Right.
trying to solve eczema, there might be some very particular thing that you're eating that's a contributing factor or causing your eczema. And you might need to find that. And it might take a lot of work. But if you want weight loss, it's going to be a totally different diet.
Agree.
The one size fits all thing is kind of nonsense. Where I see any efficacy in it is like, try to hit this much fiber. This is the recommendation. And if you approach it, you're doing pretty well. And if you don't get any fiber at all, it's probably not good for you. You know what I mean? Like that's
But
the one size fits all that I go like, yeah, that makes sense.
I want to go back to that, what you just said though. And I do think this is why the personalized nutrition approach and being able to have your own personalized dietitian is going to be so important. Because like you said, there could be a slew of different things that you're going through, right? So and that's where I do think it needs to be personalized. I think this, like you said, the generalization diet, yes, we need to increase like our education in general. But I think that if we truly could get more personalized and everyone to understand that this can be covered by your insurance and you do have the access to registered dietitians, understanding that we can get a lot deeper. We do medical nutrition therapy. And what that means is really doing a full blown assessment of who are you? Like,
Right.
what is your life? What are you dealing with? Right. Like, and like I said, so many other aspects of like, what is your sleep cycle? I was just in the ER Monday night. My daughter had the no, like throw a bug, like it's terrible. But like these nurses are working all night long. Like they're Katie, like their rhythms have to be completely off and like what they're eating. And, so it's like, I think we really need to get into that personalized set of education with them to really get to the bottom of what's going on with you and what is your life like. Like, are you cooking for a family? Are you cooking for yourself? Like, all those things come into play with medical nutrition therapy.
Yeah. And I guess that is, to my eye, the biggest thing that's missing in the social media area, and even in a lot of the diets that are peddled in books and stuff like that, they are generally sold as one size fits all. It is everybody needs to stop eating lectins, or everybody needs to stop consuming meat, or carbohydrate grain brain is the big problem in America. And it's like, I know a guy whose psoriasis cleared up when he stopped eating lectins. And then he tried to sell me on the Gundry method for weight loss. And I was like, look, dude, I've done versions of this. I've been doing this shits for 43 years now. I've done before it was the Gundry method, it was called something else, and they weren't called lectins. They were called nightshades or something. I've done that, and it doesn't, all I want to do is lose weight. Like, I have no GI problems. And, and then there's my wife, who unfortunately, through a lot of trial and error, found that her big problem was onions, of all things. She can't eat onions. And every now and again we go out to dinner and she sees something and it looks really good and it's got onions in it, and she goes like, I gotta have some of that. And then she's taking Tums at 2 a.m. And like, I can eat onions all day long. But to your point, like the personalization,
Yeah.
we just live in this binary, everybody must do this. It's sugar that's harming everyone. And that's just not been my experience. When I quit eating sugar, I never got anywhere. And now I don't eat a lot of sugar, but like if I'm in the gym and suddenly my energy goes to crap, I'll have a Gatorade, which has sugar in it, and I'll get through my workout. And that might be the only sugar I consume that day. And by the way, if I have that Gatorade right before I go to bed, I'll feel like garbage in the morning. Like, it just is, but that's me. And I'm sure there's people that won't have that exact experience. But we are kind of in a situation where it is a 1-0, like everybody,
I know.
And it's
And that's
moralized too. There's a lot of moralization of it, like wrong and right and bad and evil foods, and like, geez.
and that's what it so what I see that, so our one of our meetings that we just had today was with this new diabetes company, which I'm trying to move them into more generalization, which they do understand my position, and now they see it. So just recently I wore a CGM, which is the continuous glucose monitor, and just to see where myself as a non-diabetic, where my numbers go. Because one of the most successful patients that I had, her name's Michelle. She's done videos for us, so I can say her name. She started tracking her blood sugars. This is like probably 10 years ago. And she would report back to me like, Kelly, when I had that rum and Coke, my blood sugars went up 60 points. And then I was able to walk, I brought it down 30. Like, and she was like this insight of knowledge that I was learning from Michelle, how much her blood sugars, and she was able to see, like, I never understood when I ate a donut, this is what I was doing.
Right.
And so this is where I think with the new CGMs coming out and like this technology that we're able to use, again, back into that precision nutrition. When you eat this, this is what happens to you.
Yeah.
When you don't have this, this is what happens to you. Like, why did you crash low at the gym? Well, you missed breakfast and look at your blood sugars. Like, so this is where I really think with the new technologies, I think we're going to get into even more about understanding the human body and understanding our bodies. Like,
yeah,
I'm in perimenopause right now. So that's wacky. Like I counseled it for years and always thought that people were like, oh, okay. But actually going through it, I'm like, holy crap, like this is a real thing. But like, what's going on with my body right now? And how can I eat a little bit differently or sleep differently? Or like, what is that going to mean for me? So I'm extremely excited to see where we're going to go with the coverage of insurance with this different technology. I think that we're really truly going to be able to affect change and affect healthcare.
I really like your pitch for the CGMs, and my daughter's worn one for a long time. And we've had conversations, and to your point, like with your client, there is really fascinating stuff. Like I've given her whey protein in water and she's had glucose spikes from it, which I was like, that's not possible. It's just protein, but that's what happens in her body. But I like it because the way you describe it, it is an individual understanding what's going in my body, what's going on in their body. The way it was pitched to me the first time I heard about, like, let's use CGMs as a diet. Nobody who doesn't have diabetes, blood sugar should ever go above 120. And if it does, you should never eat that food again. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's the sales pitch, but I liked your sales pitch more,
Well, I should probably work for one. No, I do think that, I mean, Michelle taught me so much that I would never have had that insight without her telling me. And the light bulb turned on for her. She was, this amazing woman. She was a executive banker. And she said, Kelly, I just never thought about food. Like I would go to, the banker's lunch and there would be this donut or whatever. She's like, I never had any clue what it was doing to me. Like I didn't even put two and two together. So when she got type 2 diabetes, she was angry. She's like, why this happened to me? Like, whatever. And then when she was able to see how the food actually interacted with her body, she was like, oh my gosh, I was killing myself. And it was really amazing working with her and having her see it and me see it and be able to use her information to help others.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, what else can we expect in the changing landscape of dieting?
I think just people being a little bit more human and not having these radical, you're either left or right. I think like you said, religion or politics.
Yeah.
I think we really have got to get back to the basics of nutrition, the basis of how food is fueling us. I'm extremely proud to say that my daughter, who is 19, is going into nutrition herself. So like what she's learning in school and anatomy and physiology and how nutrition's being talked about differently in those classes, I do see that we are going to be a part of the health care change. So I personally want to get involved with DC, with politics. I really want to get in. I just joined my first New York State dietetic board. I think that we need to get to be a part of policy. I think dietitians need to have a bigger voice. I do see doctors referring more people to us.
I have a question in that area for you, because just through our conversation, I'm rooting for you. I'm hoping that DC gets more folk like you, of your mindset, with the intentions you have. My fear right now is that, I guess, Red 40 and corn syrup are the boogeymen. Like, I do see this idea of health in America is like, yes, and the way that my preference would be that it takes shape is by individuals going like, I'm about health. I'm interested in health. I'm interested in my own health, which is going to contribute to societal health. I think education is really, really important, but we can get into the weeds with like, we just need to tell people how bad corn syrup is. And I'm like, if we get rid of corn syrup, people are going to drink sugar. We're not going to be any better off for getting rid of corn syrup, in my opinion. I think probably soda is overconsumed. And so if we put a dent in that, maybe it makes a little bit of a benefit, but like realistically, I don't think that if we limit the subsidization of corn, that America is going to be all that much better off. And I worry that like with these movements like Make America Healthy Again, that we get these boogeymen and we can just not worry about ourselves and not
I
take
talked
personal,
about
you know what I
it
mean?
was my husband's conversation with me last night because there was an announcement that went out that telehealth services might not be covered. And I don't know, there's like, they're calling it like skinny healthcare where they're taking away some things. And I said to my husband, I said, I need to, who do I talk to? How do we get involved? How do I get involved to say, this is what we're actually doing and this is how it can change? And I can give you thousands of people to show you that this works and that it's not just one thing, that this needs to be,
It's
we need,
comprehensive and
it
it's
is
individual.
comprehensive. And so I am nervous because I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know who has whose ear. I don't know, but all I know is it's been 25 years of doing what I'm doing and it's truly working. And I'm able to educate the dietitians that are under me to do the same thing. So basically building an army of people that understand that it's not just a handout. It's not just taking red dye out. It really is holistic. It really is basically a 12-step program to carbohydrates, proteins, fats, mindful eating, sleep. Like it is really, truly a program approach. And I don't know. I mean, I do think taking chemicals out of our food supply is a good start.
Sure. I'm not, yeah, my point isn't like we need the chemicals
But
or I'm pro chemicals.
no,
My fear is that if we put all the burden of the responsibility in our heads on the chemicals, I don't think we're better off or that much better off. I think people will still overeat.
I think again, I hope whoever's listening to this podcast, like there's others like me, but like I'm here available, ready to speak, giving scientific information, and multi-decade approach. And I hope somehow, some way, we're able to get this message to the people that need to hear it.
Yeah, me too. Kelly, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.